Work on Hydrosol. So rose water is supposed to be a hydrosol. So we haven't distilled yet, but you'll see when you distill a flower or a plant, all the water soluble stuff comes out first, which is the hydrosol, and then the essential oils come out later. The reason why rose is expensive is because there are a lot of flower petals in a single drop of rose essential oil. So I've heard anywhere from 67 to 10,000 petals per drop of essential oil. 67 to up to 10,000. That's why it's, often hundreds of dollars for little bottles sometimes. But it is, I do think rose is one of the, in herbal medicine and alchemy, like rose is considered like the mother of all plants. So it's like the archetypal, you know, feminine energy plant that has 1,000 healing uses and traditions. And I do think it's worth it. But one way to use rose is just to use cheaper rose water or hydrosol. So I'll pass these around so you can all experience them. This is Edgar Casey's, the company that spun off from him, the Heritage Store rose water. It's a little more diluted, but it's super cheap. It's not very expensive. And I think you can find it even sometimes like at Walgreens and stuff. So
It's different than the rose water I'm using in India.
it's probably just quality, like how concentrated they are and that. But yeah, rose water is used a lot in Ayurvedic medicine and Indian cooking. And do you put rose water into like rose lassi? Is that all you add to it?
In rose what?
Rose lassi, like the yogurt drink.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll pass this one around. This would be, I call like a good, like if you have patience. What's really cool about rose, we'll see all of its uses, but the hydrosols are great. You can just spray them on your eyes or face or anything. Infants, children.
A lot of times the Asian ones say that was very bad.
So smell that one and feel it, and then I'll pass around. This would be a geeky artisanal. So the ultimate rose for rose essential oil is what's called the Bulgarian rose or the apothecary rose. And it is actually grown in Bulgaria. And this is like an artisanal, super geeky. You can smell and feel the difference a little bit. The first one's a little more fragrant. This one is like more therapeutic. But this is also like a great smudge. If you don't want to burn something, you can just like spray your face and just revitalize anytime. This is also really trendy on TikTok and social media right now, rose hydrosol. So yeah, don't do this one if you want a masculine smelling one. So the types of rose, we have like regular rose essential oil, which would just be like the pure essential oil. And then we have what I actually like to use a lot because it's a little cheaper, is called Rose Absolute. This is actually extracted with a solvent instead of distilled. So they get like a higher yield of it. It's a little cheaper, but it's great. And when you do like real rose of any kind, when you drop it out, this comes out pretty slow. It's kind of blood red. So, and you can smell it too. It just smells like divine. It's one of the most divine smells. So Rose Absolute is cheaper to make than distilling it. So it's like a little bit of a cheaper option. But as far as like herbal medicine for skincare and all the medicinal uses of rose essential oil, it's just like a cheaper option that I've used for years. That works, I think, a little better. And it's about a half the price or a fourth of the price as the distilled essential oil.
There's different color, actual natural color.
There's a lot of, yeah, different roses. Like if you're distilling your own oils, if you ever been to like a landscaping store and tried to smell the roses, most of them don't have any aroma. So all the hybridized, that's why we have to be careful in herbal medicine, especially if roses, because like all the hybridized things, they just don't have any medicinal properties hardly.
The diaphragm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just said this and I missed it because I was rosing out. Besides the Bulgarian rose or apothecary rose, can any other roses be used?
Not, well, they
Just
can
not-
be, but again, you're gonna have to like, some of them may have hardly any essential oils, like the ones that I have smelled, like at landscaping places. So, and prairie wild rose just doesn't have that strong aroma. I've never tried to distill it, but medicinally speaking, like if you're just going to use like rose petals for herbal medicine, you know, different than the essential oil, I think wild rose is just as good as apothecary rose in that. The flowers.
I was just wondering because the different colors of roses have different meanings.
Mhm. Yeah.
Metaphorical, romantic, whatever.
Yeah.
Standpoint. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're parallel with that and the actual topics.
I think the whiter colors, like in herbal medicine, are considered even more cooling, but the red ones are still cooling, but the white ones are like the most cold. That's like the historical, what's what old books will say. So we also have rose attar, which we kind of have here. So you've never heard that term before. So you got to be careful when you order the stuff. You might not know what you're ordering. So rose attar means it's cut with something, which makes it more affordable. So this is not labeled correctly, but this is a rose attar. So this is rose absolute that is mixed already in I think jojoba oil, but sometimes it'll also be mixed with sandalwood oil and cut with like a carrier oil. So rose attar usually means there's a carrier oil with it.
Sandalwood would complement.
Sandalwood does complement it, yeah. So this you can put like directly on your skin. You don't have to dilute it.
So you, like, if you're making rose oil, you put those like IV or Bayer to get the roses, right?
Right.
Okay.
No, you,
Say this for anything.
yeah.
Or any flowers from any source because they've been treated with neoconioids and all kinds of.
Yeah. So the roses you would buy like at flower plate, those are have so many chemicals on them that would not be good. So you can buy like from Mountain Rose, just like organic apothecary red rose petals. There's a couple of varieties we use in Chinese medicine too, but I like the European one the best. Okay, so there are actually over 5,000 varieties of rose. That's why it's kind of expensive too. And you can imagine the price if you go online and see that rose essential oil is, $10 a bottle. It's fake. This is a very counterfeited oil around the world because people, a bottle of real rose essential oil this size is going to be about $300. Yeah. So usually when we buy the pure distilled essential oil, which we usually have, but we're out, it's like smaller than your fingernail and it's like about $100. So yeah, it's 10,000. Yeah. 10,000 petals probably.
Now, like, places that's making like these rose oil or rose
Yeah.
water. like $5.
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah, this is not the real thing when people sell it for that low. Yeah. So the term like rose water and is misused a lot on social media, I've noticed. So we really want the hydrosol. So historically, hydrosols, remember, they're also sometimes called floral waters. They were often considered like a byproduct. So often they were thrown away, because you would just drain off everything before the essential oil came out. And then later in history, they started drinking because you can drink hydrosols, not essential oils. So you can use them in cooking and in India, and not so much China that I know, but in India, they use a lot of rose water and things in cooking. And you can drink them, you can do all kinds of things with them. So take baths in them. It's definitely not a waste product for sure. Like we have wild bergamot hydrosol that is one of my all-time favorite things ever. It is just that's so wonderful. So wonderful. You want to grab just a wild bergamot hydrosol? So let's look at the uses of this would be topical. It's going to mimic internal though a lot. So psychologically, this is like the hawthorn of aromatherapy. This is our archetypal heart remedy. That's why we're talking about it right now in the summer. Anything related to the heart. Somebody has heart disease, high blood pressure, depression, sadness, heavy depression. Someone has heartache, heartbrokenness, loneliness, sadness. All of these things we're going to use rose essential oil for in aromatherapy or in topical products. We especially like to put it like on people's sternum, on the breastbone. And we like to put it on the pinky fingers and the middle fingers, like on the sides. That's a great place to put rose essential oil because that kind of goes right into those meridians there. Go to the heart and pericardium. It's a great oil for PTSD. It's very calming. It's very mood uplifting, which is the same way we use it for internally. It's also good just for creating a very loving, peaceful environment when there's a lot of maybe hostility or emotions at home or workplace, maybe where a lot of people are angry and upset all the time. Like this is a very chill people out. You almost can't smell rose and not feel like comforted and grounded. Historically, rose is associated with in different religions, whether uh, almost like a smudge or sage. A lot of religions of the world burn rose incense, put rose oil and hydrosols and temples and churches around the world. Chinese tradition, they say it's associated with the immortals, which in the Western tradition, we'd probably call that angels. So it's actually said that in a lot of like European writings, it will say when what people will call angels appear, it often smells like rose. But also the idea that putting rose out is kind of like, I don't want to say bait, but it's like it invokes really positive spiritual things. Yeah. So a lot of, just like frankincense has been used like that in different religions and often associated with helping people feel connected to the divine. So it's a great meditation oil too. So mostly we're going to use this for depression and any kind of heart problem or emotional problem. This is also a great essential oil for the liver. So we can put diluted essential oils and a carrier oil over the liver. We can do that. Internally, when we take rose, like the tea, it's actually very good for the liver, very good for the heart. We'll talk about like the herbal medicine internal use later. So it can be used for detox, but the main probably bulk of why rose is so prized is it is a major skin healer. So it's going to help with the reversal of aging spots, wrinkles, what we call liver spots. I've used it for vitiligo, which is where people lose pigmentation and get like white patches all over their body. I've used it for alopecia, where people have chunks of hair spots coming out. This would all be topical. Works really good for vitiligo. Very good. Vitiligo. Vitiligo is what Michael Jackson had. It's like where your skin pigment will turn white, and people become very self-conscious about it, and especially when it's on the face and stuff. I actually had a younger kid from India that I saw that had vitiligo all around his eyes, so we couldn't like put hardly anything in it. So we just did a rose hydrosol, which reversed it to the point where we couldn't really see it anymore. You could kind of, if you noticed it or were looking for it. So rose is just, as far as like scars, scar tissue, this is also like St. John's wort topically. Any kind of scar, any kind of scar tissue, injury, wound, sprain, strain, this is like a universal topical healer. Anytime there's bruising, like lavender, this is one of our great remedies for burns of any kind. Sunburn, chemical burn, radiation burn. So rose essential oil is part of my probably #1 ingredient in my radiation, like cancer radiation therapy oil will make for people to put on after treatments. So rose essential oil mixed in a carrier oil. Usually we'll combine it with lavender and a little bit of helichrysum. And that works better than anything the medical doctor or pharmacy will give people for radiation burns.
What's the third thing?
Lavender and helichrysum. You dilute them in a carrier oil. So it's mostly rose and lavender, and then we'll put a helichrysum essential oil. I mean, I've seen patients that have had bad burns from radiation treatments that were in like wound care or trying to come out of it, and rose, even years later, sometimes it will heal like the scar tissue and discoloration and disfiguration that can happen. Yeah. Yep, over time. Yeah. It actually stimulates the growth of new skin cells also. So it heals the area, but it also stimulates the growth of new cells. So widely used in like high-end cosmetics. But again, you're better off making your own. But it's quite a yarrow-like herb too for like, again, wounds, pus-bearing sores, blisters, cyst on the body. Like it just really heals anything topically.
So that's good for like, about
It's very good for acne. Rose water, like rose hydrosol, is a great rinse. Or you could dilute rose and make your own kind of facial products. Very good for acne. It's good for all skin inflammation, psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, like when people get allergic skin reactions. This is like one of the best things we go to. If you don't have the essential oil, you could just do a bath of rose petals too. Or you could just spray the rose water right on the area too. Pretty much all wrinkles. This is like truly one of the best wrinkle things. One of the secrets for wrinkles is mixing it in castor oil base. So castor would be your base oil, and then you have rose essential oil in it. And then if you add a little like vitamin C serum to that, you got like quite a little, better than anything you can buy at Sephora. Sorry, Sephora, but true. Sorry, kids, TikTokers out there. Slow healing wounds. It's very good for itchy skin. I mean, literally viral skin outbreaks. It doesn't kill the virus, but it will like heal the skin. So when people get like shingles or have really bad shingles reactions, chicken pox, you name it. It's also very hydrating to the skin. And so this is actually called a skin cell rejuvenator. One of the other things that's really important, I think we've mentioned this, is that for people that have skin cancer, this is one thing we do topically. They've had an area cut out, then you keep for about a year, you just put rose topically all around that area. And in patients that have chronic skin cancer, where like every 6 months they're having new spots come up that they have to get burned or cut, which it can be a problem for some people, especially when they're cutting on your face. I mean, there's only, you start to develop scar tissue. So this is good for the scar tissue after having skin cancer cut out. But if people have precancerous spots that like the dermatologist is watching, I don't know how many times I've seen like daily putting rose oil on topically will usually heal them and reverse them. And in patients that I know that were getting surgeries every 6 months, it just stopped the cycle.
So does oil have to add like carrier oil always?
When it's skin cancer or precancerous, you should still have a carrier oil, but you should kind of like make it a little more concentrated. Sometimes when people have those precancerous ones, I'll put it directly right on the area. But normally we should dilute it at least a little bit.
You putting the stuff-
Textbooks will say you should only have about, 5% of an essential oil on average. So like if you have a 1 ounce bottle, that's gonna be about like 10 drops. If you have like 1 ounce of just like sesame oil or something, you just put about 10 drops of an essential oil in there. That's a good starting place. But if it's something serious like that, sometimes you have to go really higher. I have also found, and I wish I would always remember this sometimes, that rose is very good for tumors, cancerous tumors, where people just have spots that they're watching that they don't think are cancerous, but they're suspicious. We're going to put this on there for sure. So for like tumors and that, we would mix it with frankincense and myrrh. And then you have a very expensive blend. But very good. Okay. Rose is also good for all skin types. In Ayurvedic medicine, it's considered very cooling, so it's very specific for pitta problems. So hot, itchy, red, irritated skin that would be common with like too much heat in the body. This would be perfect for like eczema and psoriasis and that. That's really quite amazing. You have to also watch out because you can also buy rose hip seed oil, which that would be more just moisturizing with essential fatty acids. But some people accidentally think they're buying rose oil, but it's rose hip seed oil. That's better for like kind of like a similar to vitamin C serum, better for just collagen. So the hips, after the flower dies off, it turns into a hip. Oh, also, I learned this because they're just a commercial product. Having hazelnut oil as a base and adding a little vitamin E and then adding rose essential oil is the best topical thing I've ever seen for vaginal dryness and atrophy. For women who don't want to use like topical estrogen creams and that, this is a very, very, it at least helps all the time.
So hazelnut oil, vitamin E, and rose.
Rose essential oil.
That's
Yeah, topically, yep. You can buy it pre-made. There's a company that makes it called triple goddess oil that we use here, but cheaper to make it yourself. I don't know why hazelnut. I'm not sure. It's from a famous aromatherapist. It's not my discovery. The other thing we use rose for topically is all types of any problems with the uterus or ovaries. So fibroids, cysts, premenstrual cramps, menstrual cramps, blood stagnation in the pelvis. You've had a surgery on the abdomen and you have like scar tissue and blood stagnation. It's extremely, extremely helpful for that. Pelvic floor pain, any kind of cycle irregularities. It's just a wonderful, wonderful herb for. We use it a lot also topically for heavy menstrual flow. So internally, like the tea we use for like menstrual flow that's heavy, but topically the essential oil also helps that. It's very like astringent. So rose is like a little bit astringent. It kind of tones things. That's its kind of like character. It's a great herb. Also, like going back to like how almost every world religion has talked about rose in all the ancient writings. It has also historically been used in that context for end of life. So like hospice, anointing people's, head with oils. Rose is considered like one of the most well-suited thing for like end of life transition. Which makes sense, right? Because it's has like a very spiritually uplifting and purifying nature and invokes, just like peacefulness. So it's used a lot, as people are passing away or making that transition.
For your hair, like dry scalp.
It's very good for dry scalp. So any carrier oil and then add the rose.
But because it's astringent, you want to carry it.
Yeah, it is a little bit astringent. I think the essential oil kind of less so, but the tea in that, yeah, it can be a little bit astringent.
What question you mentioned castor oil? Why is castor oil so great?
Yeah, that's
Because castor oil, like if we have scar tissue, castor oil is the best base to mix rose in, or St. John's wort oil, like that we would make the St. John's wort oil and then add rose, because castor oil has that penetrating action. So it gets deeper into the tissues, it penetrates, it soaks, it gets into the lymph. So castor will soak a couple inches into the body. That's why it's actually used in like drug patches, because it actually is how they get drugs to go through the skin. It actually kind of pulls it through.
Right. It's kind of a solution because you mentioned a lot of times salves don't really have the strength that you'd like, or it's a way to make it topical.
Yeah, so if you have a salve already made or an oil, you could just add this to it. Yeah. So the question often becomes, okay, what if you can't afford rose? Because maybe you're on a budget or a client is on a budget. What's a really cheap oil that's very close to rose? What do you want to guess? Very similar, even in smell, is geranium. Sometimes it's actually called rose geranium. It's very cheap oil and it smells like rose. All the same properties, except not so much of like tumors and skin cancer, but it's still good for scar tissue. It has all the heart calming properties, emotional calming, mood uplifting, but it's dirt cheap. Like, I mean, this bottle's only probably like $10 or $12. This will last like forever, but I'll pass it around. It almost smells the exact same. So for aromatherapy, you can get about the same effect if you're just gonna diffuse an oil. If somebody's passing away, I mean, I would still do rose. Yeah. But it's still good for skin inflammation and all the nerve, heart calming properties. All the same properties with the pelvis and ovaries and uterus. It just doesn't have, to my experience, effect on like tumor and skin cancer and stuff like that. It's a little earthier, yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful oil. I love that oil. Also, rose and geranium are traditional oils used in summer because they're good for the heart, but they also are considered cooling to the mind. So, I mean, we can drink things like cucumber water we're drinking to cool the body, but these oils actually cool our mind. That's also why they're often used as, incense. You go to any Indian grocery store, you're going to have a whole aisle of rose incense because it's just known to be very calming and cooling and peace invoking. Okay, questions on rose or questions online?
I used to buy a rose hip syrup for muscle soreness that works really good.
You drink it internally or you put it on? Where do you get rose hip syrup at?
It's company, it's called Organic Olivia.
Mm.
It's really good.
Organic what?
Olivia.
Oh,
Okay,
I keep buying it because it works really good for muscle soreness.
so let's
You drink it.
interesting.
let's call that good if there's no question. Let's try to do cardio tonics and we'll get everybody out of here before it's too hot.